Have you ever felt like you're being told two completely different stories at the same time? Well, in the world of silver, that's exactly what's happening. There's the story you see on the news, the one told by the paper price on your screen. And then there's another story, a story happening in the physical world, in factories, in solar farms, and in places that are kept top secret. This second story is about a hidden demand so massive it's becoming impossible to ignore. Welcome to the Bullion Signal podcast. We're here to help you protect and grow your wealth by looking at the big picture, the macro signals that often get missed. Today, we're decoding the story that isn't being told, the story of a silver supply crunch that could change everything you think you know about this metal. If you find this analysis valuable, make sure you're subscribed to Bullion Signal for more deep dives just like this one.
So let's start with that first story, the one Wall Street wants you to focus on. You might see a price on your screen, let's say $62 an ounce after a run-up. The headlines will scream correction. The experts will tell you the rally is over, that the bubble has popped. And they want you to see that number, feel a little disappointed and just move on. But you have to ask yourself, is that number telling you the whole truth? Or is it perhaps just a very convenient distraction?
Because while algorithms are trading paper contracts back and forth in fractions of a second, something far more significant, far more real, is happening in the world of physical supply and demand. A tectonic shift is underway in the warehouses, the factories, and the supply chains that actually power our world. So let's pull back the curtain on the paper market and ask the real question: what is actually happening in the physical world of silver?
The first piece of this puzzle is something analysts are starting to call the industrial demand wall. And this is absolutely critical to understand. We're not talking about people buying silver coins or silverware here. We're talking about the relentless, non-negotiable, and now record-breaking consumption of physical silver by global industry. It's a demand that doesn't care about the daily price fluctuations. It only cares about getting the metal it needs to build the future.
And the numbers here are just staggering. In 2024, for the very first time, official industrial demand blew past 680 million ounces. To put that in perspective, that's an enormous amount of silver being consumed, melted down, and put into products where it may never be recovered. But here's the most important part. This isn't a one-time spike. This is the fourth year in a row that we have hit a new all-time high. You see, this isn't a blip on the radar. It's an accelerating structural trend that's fundamentally reshaping the entire market.
So, where on earth is all of this silver going? Well, you're looking at it. Solar panels have become an absolutely voracious consumer, eating up nearly 200 million ounces a year. Every electric vehicle that rolls off the assembly line has silver in its components, adding up to another massive chunk of demand. And then you have the biggest piece of the pie, electronics and all other industrial uses. We're talking about everything from your smartphone to medical devices to water purification systems. These aren't luxury goods. These are the essential building blocks of our modern technological world.
A logical question is, okay, if it's getting scarce, why don't these industries just use something else? Well, that's the multi-trillion-dollar problem. It all comes down to physics. Silver has the highest electrical and thermal conductivity of any element on the periodic table. It is quite literally the perfect metal for these jobs. For decades, the smartest minds in science and engineering have tried to find a cheaper, more abundant substitute for silver in these critical applications, and they have failed. There is no silver 2.0. It is simply irreplaceable. Now think about this stunning projection. At current growth rates, the solar industry by itself could potentially consume the equivalent of 98% of all known global silver reserves by the year 2050. That should send a chill down your spine.
Now, that 680 million ounce figure, as mind-boggling as it is, it's incomplete. It's missing a huge piece of the puzzle. We need to talk about a consumer whose demand for silver is so important, it's considered a matter of national security. A consumer whose appetite is a state secret.
So why is this demand hidden? This timeline tells the story. You see, up until 1996, the U.S. Bureau of Mines used to publish reports that gave us a pretty clear picture of how much silver the military was using. But then, in '96, the Bureau was abolished, and in that bureaucratic shuffle, the data on military silver consumption just disappeared from public view. It became classified, hidden behind the curtain of national security. The question is, why? Well, you don't classify things that aren't important. So,
Where is this classified silver actually going? It's embedded in the most advanced and critical systems that define modern warfare. Every Tomahawk cruise missile needs silver for its complex guidance systems. Torpedoes rely on incredibly powerful silver-zinc batteries. A nuclear submarine deep beneath the ocean depends on silver for its emergency backup power systems. Every satellite, from GPS to Starlink, is full of it. And the next generation of hypersonic weapons and advanced radar systems are incredibly silver-intensive. This is not optional. It is absolutely mission-critical. Now, here is the crucial point. Even though the official data is gone, industry experts and analysts have been able to make some very conservative estimates. And they suggest that somewhere between 30 and 50 million ounces of silver are being consumed every single year by the defense and aerospace sectors. And remember, not a single one of those ounces appears in the official supply and demand reports. So you have to take the already record-breaking industrial demand and then add this giant invisible demand right on top of it. It makes an already tight market dangerously tight.
So what happens when you combine this massive, visible industrial demand with the equally massive but invisible military demand? You collide head-on with a very simple, very stark reality. We are simply not mining enough silver to satisfy everyone who wants it. The demand is outrunning production, and the gap is widening.
The math here is brutally simple. You don't need a degree in economics to understand this. When you add it all up, industrial use, military use, investment demand, jewelry, everything, the world is trying to consume about 1.2 billion ounces of silver each year. But when you look at total annual supply, everything that comes out of mines plus all the silver that gets recycled, we're only producing about 1 billion ounces. We are using far, far more silver than we are producing year after year. And this isn't just a one-off problem. This isn't a single bad year. As this chart clearly shows, we've been running a massive structural deficit of around 200 million ounces every single year for several years now. It's like a family that consistently spends 20% more than it earns. Sooner or later, you have to drain your savings account just to pay the bills. And on a global scale, that's exactly what's happening. Every year, we have to find 200 million ounces from somewhere else just to keep the lights on. So where is that 200 million ounce annual shortfall coming from? It's being pulled from the world's above-ground stockpiles. These are the visible, investment-grade inventories held in vaults around the world. They're the planet's strategic reserve, our buffer stock. But at the current burn rate, at the current deficit, those essential stockpiles could be functionally depleted in as little as 5 years. Let that sink in. 5 years.
This is precisely why governments are getting very, very nervous. The U.S. government recently and very quietly added silver to its official list of critical minerals. Now, this isn't just some bureaucratic label. This is a formal public declaration that silver is absolutely essential to both economic and national security, and crucially, that its supply chain is fragile and vulnerable to disruption. This designation unlocks a whole new set of powers for the government to secure supply when they deem it necessary. It's a massive red flag.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started. It brings us to the inevitable collision between two different worlds. The world of the paper price you see on a screen and the undeniable reality of a rapidly growing physical shortage. These two worlds cannot coexist forever.
You absolutely must understand that there are two silver markets, and they play by different rules. The paper market is where the daily price is set. It's driven by futures contracts, high-frequency trading algorithms, and large banks. It can be, and often is, subject to manipulation. But then there's the physical market. This is the market of reality. It's driven by giant corporations and powerful defense contractors who need actual metal delivered to their factory doors. They operate based on the simple, unforgiving laws of scarcity.
I think this quote just perfectly captures the paradigm shift that is coming. As these global stockpiles continue to drain, the nature of the competition for physical silver is going to change dramatically. In the near future, if you want to buy physical silver, you need to understand that your main competitor won't be another small investor. It's going to be industrial giants like Samsung and defense behemoths like Lockheed Martin, entities with multi-billion-dollar budgets and government mandates to secure their supply chains at any cost.
And what happens if those giants can't get the silver they need for critical national defense projects? Well, there's a very clear, historically proven government playbook for this exact scenario. It starts when contractors report they can't source the metal. Then, an act like the Defense Production Act is invoked. This gives the government the power to effectively take control of the supply chain. This could very well mean restricting or even halting civilian sales of things like bullion coins and then allocating every available ounce of silver to national security and economic priorities. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's legal pressing.
So this is the billion-ounce question we're all left with. What happens when these two worlds can no longer be kept separate? What happens when a paper price, potentially held down for years by financial interests, finally smashes into the unmovable, unbreakable wall of a physical shortage? A shortage driven by the non-negotiable demands of modern industry and the absolute priorities of national defense. That, my friends, is the moment when everything changes. Thank you for tuning into the Bullion Signal podcast. If this analysis has given you a new perspective, please do us a favor and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss our next deep dive. Remember, the goal isn't to predict the future, but to prepare for it. Until next time. And just a reminder, this content is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial or investment advice. Please do your own research and consult with a professional before making any financial decisions. You are solely responsible for the choices you make.